Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mediation and Beyond YouTube channel. I am super excited today to have Michelle Zararo. She's from Divorce RX, which I'm so excited to learn about. Michelle is the founder of Divorce RX, a unique brand of professional organizing. God, we all need that, divorced or not, that focuses on the needs of divorcing parents and families. She combines her professional background as an organizer and her personal background as a child of divorce and divorced mother of 3 to help families organize their home and lives when transitioning from one home to 2. Michelle passionately believes that when children are in an environment that is organized and calm, this translates into feelings of predictability, safety at a time when they need it most. Isn't that for sure? Her passion for her work stems from the desire to help parents show up for themselves and for their children during divorce in a way that makes them proud. There are several ways that Michelle works with families to ensure that their transition is as seamless as possible. Her signature program, the Divorce Toolkit, is an 8-week virtual program focusing on 4 main categories every 2 weeks: the physical space, great academics, health, and social lives. She can also provide the 8-week program in 2 concentrated half days for those who are in a time-sensitive situation or just to prefer everything up front. In addition, there's more, everybody. In addition, Michelle offers a power hour to target one main issue and provide actionable steps to take to get there. Friends and family members who would like to help may purchase gift certificates as a way to show their support. Michelle believes in the importance of meeting her clients where they are and working together to create solid action plans to move them forward in a gentle and consistent way. Michelle, this is such a great concept. So I'm so excited to have you here today. Thanks for coming.
Colleen. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, what I like about what you're doing is my business is called Mediation and Beyond. So this is the beyond piece, one of the beyond pieces that is so essential to divorcing parents. It doesn't matter if it's father or mother, everybody needs some help with their physical space.
I would agree. And I would also say, people who are organized in general, once you throw in all of the chaos and overwhelm of what you need to deal with when you're going through a divorce, some of those organizational skills fall by the wayside a little bit. I mean, the skills are still there, but the maintenance of what your home and life looked like is sort of hijacked a bit by these new fires that you need to be putting out, be them financial, legal, custodial, all of those. And so your physical space can, and the management of your household and your kids can kind of fall by the wayside. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Well, especially, when there's a couple of things in there when you're going through that divorce process, because the paperwork is a lot, right?
Mhm.
That whole paperwork getting organized. And then if one of the parents has left the home and you're with the children, now it's all the being by myself doing everything. Like you're saying, a parent's out of the house. So you have more responsibility, I think, sometimes than you did before.
Oh, absolutely. Because now, even if it's in a situation, and you mentioned the beyond part of it. And so the goal is to get to the beyond part of it, not to force it to get there quicker, but to focus on what's my life going to look like beyond this. And oftentimes when you're going through it, when you're in the day-to-day of the divorce, it's hard to see, but I like to, talk to my clients about, okay, you're not going to be feeling like this forever. Your house is not going to look like this forever.
Right.
Let's look, how can we move forward? How can we do it at a pace that's right, for each individual? But eventually they're going to be in a situation where most people have some type of shared custody. And when you have that shared custody, you are 100% responsible for your kids during that time. There's not another parent usually that you can call on, to say, could you do this or could you do that? You've got to know about it. It's not just the doing of, piece of it. It's also the awareness of it. And I find that that's something that a lot of people don't have because they were operating in a partnership, where there was division of labor. And now like you said, they're responsible for everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that overwhelming thing. And I think the parent who leaves and tries to go and set up space somewhere else, now you're having the children come to a completely new environment for themselves where they like their space at home for the most part. Most, they like their rooms,
Yeah. Yeah.
but going to a new space, you're going to have a buy-in from the kids in a way, especially the
Mhm.
older ones. Littler ones, it is what it is. But if you have teenagers, you're going to have a buy-in for them to like that new space.
Yeah, I love that. No one's ever put it like that, a buy-in. Absolutely. And there's a lot of anxiety that can come up if you're the parent who's leaving the marital home and setting up a new space. You're gonna be concerned, my place isn't as big as, it isn't as comfortable as, the kids aren't going to want to come, to my place, because like you said, they're so used to their own, and there's so much change right now. This is just
Yeah.
another change, and some kids don't even understand, why do they need to do this at all? Why can't they just stay where they are? And so helping the parent who moved out set up a new place that is, you know, comfortable and functional also for the kids who are going to be spending a significant amount of time there is super important. And you don't want to spend the time that you have, the little time now that you have with your kids, getting to that functional and comfortable space. Ideally you want that done before they, are there, or on the time that they're with the other parent. And so that's something that I help with. And the other thing that's really, really important, and I really like to be mindful of, is the kids' view, like you said before, getting that buy-in, which I'm going to start using that. I hope that's okay.
I don't have it trademarked, but
Right.
I do love it because it works with
Yeah,
kids.
to say to the kids, with parents' approval, of course, to say to them, well, you know what? Here's a blank slate. You've got a new room. What would you like to do with it? And that can spark some of that buy-in quality of like, oh, I have, a clean slate, and I can pick my sheets and my wall color, and that, do they want it to look different? Do they want it to look the same as the other home?
Well, you
So
know what I think,
it's
Michelle,
different.
is interesting is that I also think that's a great way for children to have a bonding moment with the other parent who
Yeah.
can then hear that child, and who's interested in what they like and who wants them to be happy in this new space. So I actually think that can be a really good thing for the parent who's moved out, which doesn't always have to be the dad, but the parent who's moved out trying to connect with their children. I think this can be a really nice way to do that.
Yeah, I love that you said that also. And I also love that you said that it's not always the dad. It's not always the dad.
No.
These days you do hear a lot of the moms are, the ones who are moving out and setting up new places.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it is absolutely an opportunity to bond. And I am all about what's good for the child, and how can, through what I'm doing, help the parents. How can I help the parents show their kids that they hear them? Yes, they're busy with their regular lives. Yes, they're going through a divorce, but that doesn't mean that the children and their needs have to fall through the cracks. It doesn't mean that it also doesn't mean that you need to put aside an hour every day to sit down and have a heart-to-heart with your kids, because guess what? Your kids don't really want that. And you don't have the patience for that, probably, or the time for that. But what people don't understand, and there's Julie Morgenstern, she's an organizer, and she talks a lot about, she's got a book out, and I will think of it eventually what it's called. But she talks a lot about these little increments of time with your kids and how valuable they are. It does not need to be this big thing that we oftentimes as parents think it needs to be. It could be a check-in. It could be, a quick text. But consistency is really key, and the consistency and the organization, that's what at this time is really important to the kids, when they can feel that there's not a lot of security and stability and consistency and continuity in their lives.
Yeah, well, if you move them into a space that feels chaotic when their world is now already chaotic, it only adds to their own demise. And so when you look at your kid and why they're unhappy, please look at your space and see what kind of space you're providing, right?
100%. Absolutely. And these things are not that hard to do, and that is why sometimes parents who are going through this, they feel overwhelmed. They feel, paralyzed to move forward with this. And it feels daunting and overwhelming. And after, a whole day at work and taking care of kids, the last thing you want to do is start shopping for things or start rearranging things or start organizing things. And, that's the thing that you don't, quote unquote, have to do. You don't have somebody emailing you or calling you, well, where's this paper or where's that, or the other spouse, whatever's going on there communication wise, especially in the beginning of the divorce, where you're just figuring out how to co-parent together. It is like launching a baby, that
Well, some of
co-parenting.
my friends or people I've worked with, what I've seen has been really helpful, which is akin to what you're doing, is so on their first weekends where the children are not with them, these are
Mhm.
great projects to take on and tackle because you miss your kids. You're not used to not having them. And then all of a sudden you have all this time on your hands. And so I think these are great projects for people to start doing and owning their new space, right? And being able to just get their mind off of their kids a little bit and onto their new, hopefully exciting space.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't even thought about that as a great way, because so many people in the first days and weekends are feeling that loneliness. But if you're then putting that energy into something positive for your kids, I think that can be really, really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it beats trying to go out, sitting at a bar, and all those other things that that
Gosh.
aren't very helpful for anybody to be doing, especially in the early stages. But
Yeah.
I think just owning your space and getting involved in creating a space that you feel good in, and that hopefully your children feel good in as well.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So so you have a couple of programs. So I want to just touch on those. So you said you have your divorce toolkit. Can you speak what that is?
Sure. So I came up with the divorce toolkit as really a basic starting point and structure for people who are, ideally early on in the process, but, wherever you are in the process, and you could even be divorced and finding that things, divorced for a while and finding that things are not working the way that you want them to. And so maybe you need to rewind a little bit and do a little bit of fixing. And so that can work, this can work for that as well. So the divorce toolkit they're really planning sessions, because I'm not physically coming to your home. They're planning sessions and saying, okay, week one, what's going on in your physical space, and what do you need from this point on? Do you need an apartment? Do you need a home? Do you need to make a change? Do you need to rearrange what you have already? Like, what's exactly happening, whether you're the person who's in the marital home or the person who is in the new home? And oftentimes, the family home has to get sold, and both parents also, that's another scenario. Both parents need to move out. There's some downsizing, and so sometimes people move out and they have a ton of stuff and they're in a smaller place and they don't know what to do with it. And so everyone's sort of tripping over it. And like you mentioned before, that chaos, that physical chaos, is not good for anybody, especially at this time. So that's what we look at the first week.
Okay.
The second week, we look at what's going on in school, and we look at the academic piece. And it's really a catch up. It's really a feeding of information to the parent who may not be the parent who was always involved in that. Even if both parents are working full time, oftentimes one parent or the other is the one who's handling a lot of these logistics. And so the divide and conquer, unfortunately, doesn't work anymore. So oftentimes I'll find parents, they're not even aware that they're supposed to be getting emails from teachers. Do you know if that, when the vacations are? Do you know when teacher conferences are? Do you know that your child has a tutor, and who is the tutor, and when does your child go to all of that information, all of those questions that need to be asked and solidified and need to get on paper, and or some type of calendaring system. So we talk about that, and it's really like, I find people haven't taken the time to sit down and flesh it all out. It's really like a planning session. And then you see where the gaps are. And then we figure out how to fill in those gaps, what way works best for the individual, because everybody has different, obviously everyone has
Well,
different.
it's funny you say that, the academic piece, because having been a former teacher, it gets hard. It's hard, parent in the computer system, you typically most schools will have the one parent's address. So things go out to
Right.
that one parent. You don't typically, unless someone's coming in to tell you want something mailed separately or whatever. So it's really, I think, incumbent upon the parents, one or both, to share with the teacher about what's going
Yeah.
on. So that way that teacher can also be informed, because the child's
Exactly.
job is school. Right?
Exactly. And that's a good point that you brought up. And, one of the things that I tell people is you're going to need to let the school know. And oftentimes there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of embarrassment, and people kind of feel, especially in the beginning, like we can slide through, we don't really need to tell anybody. Well, guess what? You really do.
You do.
And that's not about you, that's about your child. And that's about things running smoothly for your child. And teachers need to be aware of
Teachers, coaches,
yes,
anything like that.
100%.
It's so helpful.
Right. And that's where some, therapists can come in handy and helpful. And if that's something that a parent is dealing with and doesn't want to discuss, what's happening at home. And I don't know, about you with your kids, but I know every time I went to parent teacher conferences with my kids, if one of the questions was, is there anything going on in the home that we should know about? And this is like number one, ding, 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 yes, there is.
Yes.
So, but again, that's a gentle, an easing of parents becoming willing and aware that that's something that they need to do for the sake of their children and their children's
Absolutely.
success in school. Yeah, absolutely.
And so the academics is a significant piece for both parents to provide in both homes.
Exactly. And, oftentimes, especially in the beginning, when, like we talked about before, you're just launching the co-parenting model and what that's going to look like. And, um, oftentimes the one parent may not be so forthcoming with the information. They may not be like, oh, by the way, just remember that there's this event at school or there's this thing happening. They may, depending, hopefully not, but certainly we've seen it and we know of it, they may use that, information that they have about their children's lives as a weapon against the other parent, because they want that other parent to fail. And that just breaks my heart. And I try to, as much as possible, like just shine a light on that and who that's really hurting.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the beauty of having a solid parenting plan that
Yeah.
should, I know I do a ton of parenting plans, and that has to be in there. The contact information, who's responsible for what, that should be, but most times it's not, and it's
Yeah.
not covered. And so it can become a problem. And that's where also what you're doing is so helpful.
Yeah. And just sort of putting it out there when parents see it in this way, they can remove themselves from the emotions and put themselves into the facts and the logistics. And
Right.
that's what I really try to do, as much as possible, is refocus them to those facts and logistics.
And the power hour, and that's really must be where you're feeling like, I have one area where I just can't, I can't get it right. I need some hand holding.
Yeah. So the power hour is, well, just to quickly finish what you were saying about what we were talking about, the toolkit, which those are the first 2 weeks. And then the second 2 weeks is really a similar kind of, planning and fleshing out what's going on with the physical and mental health, is like what we do in week 3. Who's taking the kids to the doctor? When are they taking, what, how far, there are certain doctors that need to be scheduled pretty far out, and who's doing that? And nobody, oftentimes people are not thinking about that. And then there's the parent who doesn't even know who the doctor is, there's that kind of stuff. And then
Parents about trying to get them to agree on the doctor.
exactly, right. And if the child needs a all of that kind of stuff, and insurance information, that's another withholding thing that can come up. The parent who has the insurance may not, may feel like, well, it's my insurance and I'm going to hold on to it. And well, when the other parent shows up at the doctor or a new doctor and they don't have the insurance information, these are just things you wouldn't necessarily think of unless someone mentions them to you. So that's where I really see myself, being able to be helpful, is putting these scenarios that you wouldn't know, you don't know what you don't know, and putting those scenarios out there and making sure that people are covered as they're moving forward and doing new things as a divorced parent. And then the 4th week is the social activities. Depending on ages, you're going to have carpools, you're going to have, kids their play dates, the parties, all that kind of stuff. Do you know who your kids' friends are? And do you have their parents' contact information? Because when the kids are dropped off and if you need to, reach a parent, do you have that information? Carpools, all that kind of stuff. And then activities that are outside of school, camp, that type of thing. And the calendaring of that, the planning of that. You can't wake up in May and say, you know what, I think my kid wants to go to camp this summer. And, because there's not going to be any spots left, depending on what kind of camp you want to go to, et cetera, like thinking about those things. And then as kids get into high school and beyond, their lives become more complicated in a planning situation, and they may not be aware of it. And you may be thinking about other things as a divorcing parent. Like, I've got other things, those fires, and I'm not thinking about what my kid is going to, does my kid want to do a summer abroad or, an internship that I need to
Well, I
help
always say the
figure out.
parenting plan evolves. As the children grow, so should the parenting plan should grow.
Absolutely.
I'm all about revisiting
Yes.
annually to address each child's needs, because a parenting plan at 5 years old is not the same parenting plan at 8 or 10 years old.
Of course not. Right. And that's a great point. And that goes for the physical space as well. And that's why, like, down the road, your kids who have toys and clothes that are appropriate for a 5-year-old, and even the space, that's not going to be appropriate for a high school kid. You're
Right.
going to need a better workspace. You're going to need different, even in the closets, you're going to need different hanging spaces. And, there's lots of things that change so rapidly.
Different comforter, right?
Exactly. Right. So you asked about the power hour. So the power hour, exactly like you said, it's like, bring me your biggest pain point. What's the thing that's keeping you up at night? And you just, you can't move past, you can't figure out what to do about it. Bring that to me. Let's talk it through. I will give you some actionable steps today to move forward with it, whatever size they are for what your specific situation is. And it's also an opportunity for the person and I to get to know each other a little, try each other on for size and see, without making a significant money or time commitment. Is this someone that I can help? Is this someone who is ready to move forward? And do they feel comfortable with me? Because this is the person who hires me is going to be bringing me into their home and into their family at a really difficult time. And there needs to be a comfort level. They need to make sure that they're comfortable with me.
Yeah, a level of trust is significant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely is. Well, I love what you're doing, Michelle. I think it's such a necessity. It adds to the divorce community. And actually, being honest, like, for your skill set, you don't need to be divorced. Like, your skill set still apply to just people in their house who, especially during COVID, can see, like, we need to change our space up here a little bit, right? And
absolutely.
You can still be helpful in that world as well. I mean, your skill set transcends no matter what's going on in someone's life.
For sure. And I did spend many years, as an organizer, just in families and not necessarily getting divorced, and small businesses. But what's different now is that I've been through it myself, and I watched my kids go back and forth, from my house to their dad's house, and I saw the logistics. And as far as I know right now, there isn't anyone else in the organizing space who has both that personal and professional skill set. And so people, I think, they also feel, they look at me and they see some hope, like, oh, look, she got through it and she's okay and she's thriving in her life, and she's got a roadmap, let me get in that car and go on that road trip with her, and she can help me out and through, and like you said, beyond. And I love the beyond part. I love to focus on that part.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
The mediation is important, but that beyond piece, as soon as the ink's dry on the divorce, you're left standing there.
Absolutely.
Having been there, and you're having been there, you're left standing there, and there's so much more to do.
Beyond, right.
The list is endless. And so I think it's really important to be able to highlight people in the area who can assist and help. So thank you so much. I'm going to put your information below. People will see it in YouTube, and we will be in touch.
Thank you so much, Colleen.
I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.